As I speak on Friday, May 22nd, 2020, this is the current situation in the United States regarding the global pandemic. America remains the worst hit country by COVID-19, suffering more cases than the other top 5 countries combined. Over 1.5 million Americans have contracted the virus, many becoming seriously ill, and 97,000 people thus far have died. About 2,000 people are dying each day right now. It's estimated that by August, 150,000 Americans will be dead. This is twice a recent estimate. In the midst of all of this, the Trump administration is declaring victory and a job well done for having kept the number of fatalities between 1 and 200,000 by the time that this virus is over, which Trump thinks is soon. But this is a scandal because these numbers could have been kept much lower by tens of thousands had Trump taken this virus seriously in the first place and not dismissed it as a hoax to play golf. And these numbers will probably go much, much higher, and many cases, no doubt, have been covered up already for political reasons. Right now, the country is reopening, and no surprise, death rates are starting to climb again. Here in Texas, where I live, the governor just approved reopening many businesses, including gyms, child daycare centers, restaurants, and bars. And yet this decision came on the day that the state reported 1,801 new confirmed coronavirus infections, marking its single highest rise in cases in Texas since the beginning of the pandemic. And 2 days ago, more than 100,000 coronavirus cases were reported to the World Health Organization. Again, the most in a single day since the outbreak began. In the US, there is still no coordinated national approach or guidance. States are adopting their own policies toward reopening in a very haphazard way, and generally the public is very confused. Trump, who recently recommended drinking disinfectants to stay healthy, continues to push unproven and dangerous remedies to treat the virus. And at the same time, he continues to censor the science that contradicts his happy narrative of an America becoming great again through the revival of its economy. People should realize that science is being censored here, much like in China. Trump censored climate change science over the last few years, and he is now censoring medical science. Our prestigious organization, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has been muzzled, and scientists who refuse to manipulate data for the White House are being fired, and others who are willing to do so are being hired to lie about the dangers of reopening this country. Trump will do anything necessary to try to revive the economy and win re-election, no matter what the costs are, including to lives that are clearly all too expendable to him. There are credible predictions that a second wave is coming in the fall and winter, which could hit even harder than the first wave of the outbreak. This was the case during the 1918 Spanish flu. It was the second wave that killed the most people. And some experts are saying now that in the US, the virus will continue to burn through 60 to 70% of the population until we reach herd immunity before this will be over. Right now, only about 5 to 15% of the population have been infected, and so this is quite a ways to go. These are bad times. We are being hit here by the 1-2 punch of the worst crisis in modern US history and the worst president that we have ever had to suffer presiding over this crisis. The virus is not a hoax, it's not the flu, it's not overhyped. It's powerful and it deserves our respect. And yes, the media may feed off the virus as a spectacle, and most certainly the economic and political elites are exploiting it to carry out their anti-democratic agendas. But to deny the seriousness of the virus is to turn away from the most dysfunctional and destructive dynamics of global capitalism and human behavior that we must keep a sharp focus on. I like to remind people of the radicality of the present moment. First, we are living in the sixth great extinction event, the mass extinction of species in the history of this earth. Right now, it's happening before our eyes. The last five extinction events were all caused by natural events, and the last one happened 65 million years ago when a meteor struck the Gulf of Mexico, wiped out the dinosaurs and 70% of all life on the planet. The sixth one, the one we are experiencing now, is, however, created by humans, not natural causes. And similarly, we are living in the era of climate change, runaway climate change, arguably. The intensification of climate change dynamics that began with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century have reached a point now where we have completely altered the basic dynamics of the Earth. And many people argue that we have created a new geological epoch in Earth history that some are calling the Anthropocene. And the main characteristic of the Anthropocene, as the name suggests, is that human beings have become the driving force of change now. Not natural causes, but human causes, through the various ways in which we strip and plunder and alter this world and its planetary atmosphere. In discussions about COVID-19 and various social ecological problems, I find there's been very little talk about animals and the crucial role that human exploitation of animals plays in all of this and so many of our problems. I said some general things about that in my paper for this conference, and I'll say a couple of things more here. In my work, I often focus on or apply what I call the animal standpoint. The animal standpoint is both a theoretical standpoint, historical, sociological, and ecological in nature, and a moral or philosophical standpoint. It has a strong ethical component. To apply the animal standpoint is to analyze human history from the perspective of our interrelationship with other species, non-human animals, which unfortunately, these relationships are primarily exploitative on our parts. They occur within relationships of human domination and through the mentality of human supremacism or speciesism, as we say. As Nietzsche said, we need many perspectives to comprehend reality in any adequate way. And the animal standpoint, I submit, is indispensable for understanding human history, social change, and our current crises. No humanist standpoint or combination of humanist standpoints, Marxist, feminist, anarchist, world systems theory, what have you, none of these humanist standpoints are adequate for grasping the dynamics of social and historical reality. We also need the animal standpoint. Try, if you will, to decipher what Marx called the riddle of history without the animal standpoint. How can we understand anything without continuously realizing that we ourselves are animals and that our animality decisively shapes who we are and how we behave? Our history goes back not 200,000 years ago with the emergence of Homo sapiens, but rather 5 to 7 million years ago, as our earliest ancestors branched off a primate form of evolution. As Darwin recognized, we are different from other animals in degree, but not kind, and they have sophisticated lives that we are barely beginning to understand, and we are animals who have animality. We aren't just historical social beings. Can you imagine the development of civilization without animal domestication and the decisive impact that has played on all human evolution for the last 10,000 years? Can you imagine warfare without the way we have exploited horses and how that interaction changed history? Can you imagine human history that is not decisively shaped by zoonotic diseases? As I wrote in the paper, zoonotic diseases are diseases transmitted from animals to humans. So consider the impact of the bubonic plague in medieval times, the 1918 Spanish flu, or the major impact that COVID-19 is having on our world right now. Zoonotic diseases result from our close interaction with non-human animal species, and since we inhabit the same planet, these would be impossible to avoid altogether. But they become severe problems when we invade wildlife habitat and exploit animals for food and other purposes. Many problems result. And how is it possible, for instance, to comprehend global warming and climate change, the current planetary crisis, without understanding the current role played by industrial exploitation of animals or factory farms and the mass consumption of animals and meat? For this, we burn down forests, destroy habitat, exterminate species, produce enormous amounts of greenhouse gases, and so on. Is a meat-based diet really worth destroying the planet for? And if animal exploitation is so critical in so many human, social, and environmental problems, then the descriptive and theoretical aspect of the animal standpoint shifts into the ethical and prescriptive aspect and tells us that we need to treat animals radically differently. We need to abandon our human supremacist viewpoints and treat animals as complex subjects of a life who have fundamental rights. The right to live, basically, the right to be with their own kind, the right to move freely, and to be free and happy, undisturbed by predatory human hands. We cannot change and resolve the root causes of our many problems until we radically change our exploitative relationships with animals and nature and the exploitative mentalities that accompany them. To lead healthy lives, we need a healthy planet. A healthy planet requires biodiversity. Biodiversity requires non-negotiable protections for animals and the environment. Generally, sadly, we don't learn the key lessons of the past. That societies that grow too large and overshoot their ecological limits fail and collapse. The earth is littered with the ruins of failed social systems. Nature is finite and demands that we live in harmony with it through sustainable systems. I don't think the goal is sustainable growth, likely an oxymoron, but degrowth. Reduction of our impact on this planet, a different economy that is not based on grow or die imperatives, and backing off of nature and giving more space to non-human animals to reclaim and enjoy. We need a more holistic, non-reductionistic conception of health, since we are in a world of disease now. One that integrates the importance of the health of humans, animals, and the environment, and one that understands that social and political health, a vibrant democracy, is vital to the flourishing of biodiversity and ecological systems. The COVID-19 pandemic is a stark reminder of our dysfunctional relationship with nature. Let's learn this lesson and make the necessary changes. Thank you.